The transmission was fragmented, warped by radiation and the immense distances it had crossed. But the cry, a single, anguished wail from a mother who had lost her child, rang out with shattering clarity. It reverberated through silent stations, cut through static, and pierced the darkest reaches of human-occupied space. This was no ordinary lament. It was humanity's breaking point. The boy, named Vaughn, was just 10 years old. His crime, straying too near a restricted Xerith landing pad on the mining colony of Dwellin. His punishment, instant atomization by a bored guard's particle weapon, his small form dissolving into mist before his mother's eyes. That scream, raw and primal, would alter the galaxy forever. Melinda Shaw, a geologist, had been recording seismic data that night, her equipment inadvertently capturing both the child's disintegration and the mother's heart-wrenching cry. When she uploaded her findings to the interplanetary network, she forgot to exclude the audio file. By morning, the cry had reached every human settlement across 17 star systems. By nightfall, rebellion had ignited. The Corvus star system, on the fringes of the Galactic Alliance's control, was a bleak frontier, rich only in corsium deposits and human misery. For generations, humans had accepted their subservient role within the Alliance's hierarchy, beneath the dominant Xerith Empire and other advanced species who saw them as little more than dexterous primates with minimal rights. On Dwellin, a mineral-rich moon orbiting the gas giant Corvus 4, human workers endured 16-hour shifts in the corsium mines. Melinda Shaw, a 34-year-old geological engineer, had been tasked with evaluating new drilling sites. She ventured out during the planetary night cycle, when seismic readings were clearest. Her sensors were active when Vaughn slipped away from his mother's quarters. The boy, captivated by the sleek Xerith ships landing near the mining compound, had only wanted to gaze at them, to dream of stars beyond his dusty existence. Children on frontier worlds matured quickly, but curiosity remained their birthright. The Xerith Guard didn't issue a warning. A beam lanced out, catching Vaughn mid-step. For a fleeting moment, his silhouette glowed incandescent against the night, his face frozen in surprise, not fear. Then he was gone, his particles scattered by Dwellin's harsh winds. His mother, trailing just steps behind, unleashed a scream that began as the light consumed her son and continued until her voice broke into shattered sobs. Melinda's equipment recorded it all. When she reviewed her data the next morning, horror gripped her at what she'd captured. Her trembling finger hovered over the delete command, but instead she saved the file, uploaded her entire data package to the central server, and vanished into the labyrinth of mining tunnels as the weight of her actions dawned. The files spread like wildfire. The visual was grainy, indistinct, but the audio sliced through souls like a plasma torch through hull plating. That cry encapsulated everything. The powerlessness, the humiliation, the centuries of silent suffering humanity had endured under galactic rule. In Dwellin's administrative hub, Xerith loyal security forces hunted desperately for Melinda Shaw and the mother, now identified as Liana, but they were too late. The spark had ignited. In secure chambers across human space, military leaders and politicians convened in emergency sessions. On Earth, fleet commanders, who had long concealed their true strength from Alliance observers, stood before screens displaying the message that accompanied the viral recording. No more. Human members of the Galactic Alliance's Supreme Council raised the Dwellin incident during an emergency session, but Chancellor Saraxa, the towering gray-skinned Xerith representative, dismissed their concerns with a wave of his six-fingered hand. The unfortunate termination of a single human offspring does not warrant council attention, he rumbled, his translator softening but not masking the menace in his voice. The Guard followed protocol for restricted zones. If human parents cannot control their young, we cannot be held accountable. Ambassador Ella Wexler, Earth's senior delegate, rose from her seat, a breach of protocol that sent unease rippling through the alien delegates. "With respect, Chancellor," she said, her voice steady despite the fury in her rigid stance. "We are not discussing a termination. We are discussing the murder of a child. Human colonies across 3 sectors are mobilizing in protest. I urge the Council to—" "You are not recognized, Ambassador," Saraxa interrupted, his neck ridges flushing deep purple, a sign of Xereth irritation. "Humans have the privilege of council membership, not the right to speak whenever emotion clouds your limited reasoning." The chamber fell silent. Wexler stood for 3 heartbeats before slowly resuming her seat. In the viewing gallery, representatives from the Marcy Collective and Odin Federation exchanged knowing glances. Both species harbored their own grievances against Xereth dominance, long suppressed. Now they watched as humans, once deemed docile, neared their breaking point. On Mars, in a fortified bunker beneath the surface, Commander Rhea Caswell reviewed tactical displays with her senior staff. At 56, Caswell had spent decades advocating for peaceful coexistence within the Alliance, but she had also quietly prepared for this moment. "The Xerath have dismissed the Dwellin incident," reported Colonel Emerson, her intelligence chief. "They've deployed security reinforcements to major human settlements and mining operations, standard intimidation tactics." "And our assets?" Caswell asked, her weathered face expressionless save for the intensity in her gray eyes. "Ghost Fleet is ready to deploy on your command. All sleeper cells are activated. The Resistance Collective is forming faster than anticipated. 17 non-human species have pledged support." Caswell nodded, then turned to the third person in the room, an aging academic with kind eyes, masking his strategic brilliance. "Dr. Mortis, your assessment?" Elias Mortis, humanity's foremost expert on interstellar politics, stroked his white beard thoughtfully. "The Xerath expect protests, perhaps localized uprisings they can crush for show. They don't anticipate coordinated resistance because they fundamentally underestimate us. That's our only advantage." "It's enough," Caswell said firmly. "Humanity has played the obedient servant for generations, all while building strength in secret. We've developed technologies they never suspected we could master. We've forged alliances they never imagined possible." She straightened her uniform. "We will not retreat another step." The command went out, encrypted and dispersed through channels the Xerath had never detected. Across human colonies, hidden armories were unsealed, sleeper agents activated, and ships posing as civilian transports revealed forbidden weapon systems. When a Xerath supply depot at Nexus 4 erupted in flames 3 days later, the shock wasn't just the attack. It was that humans had succeeded without losing a single soldier. The precision raid destroyed critical military resources while sparing all personnel, sending a clear message. This was not a savage rebellion, but a calculated revolution. Meanwhile, Melinda Shaw, smuggled off Dwellin by resistance operatives, found herself aboard a transport bound for Mars, meeting Commander Caswell herself. "I never meant to start a war," she confessed, her hands trembling around a cup of synthetic coffee. "You didn't start it," Caswell replied, her voice gentle but resolute. "You gave voice to what we've all felt for generations. That cry you recorded wasn't just one mother's pain, it was humanity's soul finding its voice after centuries of silence." The Nexus 4 raid was only the beginning. Within weeks, coordinated strikes hit Xerath installations across human-settled systems. On Trilix, a farming colony where the Xerath were building a new military base, ordinary citizens armed with mining tools and improvised weapons defended their homes. When Xerath retaliation came, swift and brutal orbital bombardment, it should have crushed resistance. But as Xerath ground forces descended to secure the ruins, they faced an unexpected threat. Ships materialized from nowhere, their stealth systems rendering them invisible until they opened fire. The Ghost Fleet had entered the war. Colonel Varon Quinn watched impassively from his command chair as Zereth cruisers exploded under his squadron's assault. At 43, Quinn was a cold tactician. His empathy burned away years ago when Zereth forces purged a human settlement on Helios Prime, claiming it harbored illegal technology. His family had been among the victims. "Target their command vessel's propulsion systems," he ordered, his voice as flat as if requesting a status report. "Exploit the shield fluctuation at the coordinates we identified." The Ghost Fleet ships, built in secret asteroid facilities over decades, isolated microscopic vulnerabilities in Zereth shield harmonics, allowing precise energy pulses to bypass. Defenses designed for far stronger attacks. The Zereth flagship listed heavily as its engines failed. Quinn watched without satisfaction as the massive vessel began an uncontrolled descent toward Trilix's surface, away from civilian zones. "All targets neutralized," his tactical officer reported. "No losses on our side." Quinn nodded. "Signal ground forces. They have 48 hours to evacuate survivors before Zereth reinforcements arrive." He paused, then added, "Transmit footage of their flagship's defeat to all resistance channels. The galaxy needs to see the Zereth can bleed." The Battle of Trilix became a rallying cry across Alliance space. Species long resentful of Zereth dominance began their own rebellions. The Marcy Collective, master traders and information brokers, severed vital supply chains. The Odin Federation, whose engineers maintained many Alliance jump gates, introduced technical difficulties that only affected Zereth military transports. On dozens of worlds, ordinary Zereth citizens watched with growing unease as their government's promises of swift victory gave way to reports of mounting losses. Whispers began in Zereth society, questioning whether centuries of assumed superiority had blinded them to a changing galaxy. Chancellor Saraxa convened the Zereth High Command in their fortress-like headquarters on Zereth Prime, his neck ridges flaring with barely contained rage as he reviewed tactical displays. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "They are humans. Primitive, weak-willed creatures with no grasp of true warfare." General Kurose, the Empire's most decorated military leader, shifted uncomfortably. "Chancellor, we may have miscalculated. Human technology has advanced far beyond our intelligence estimates. Their Ghost Fleet uses stealth systems our sensors can't reliably detect, and they've formed alliances with species we thought loyal." Saraxa's fist slammed the display. "Then we will show them the consequences of defiance. Activate planetary pacification protocols on their outer colonies. Let them watch their worlds burn." From the chamber's edge, a calm but commanding voice interrupted, "That would be unwise, Chancellor." All eyes turned to General Takari Vori, older than most officers present, a moderate often sidelined for his cautious approach to interspecies relations. "The humans aren't fighting as we expected," Vori continued, unfazed by Saraxa's glare. "They avoid civilian targets and offer mercy to our defeated forces. If we resort to planetary destruction, we lose moral authority in the Alliance's eyes. The rebellion will spread beyond containment." Saraxa's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. "You sound remarkably concerned for our enemies, General." "I am concerned with victory," Vori replied evenly. "Victory requires understanding our opponent. These humans fight with purpose, discipline, and unexpected restraint. That makes them more dangerous than we anticipated." The chamber fell silent as the two Zereth leaders locked eyes. Finally, Saraxa turned away. "You've always counseled moderation, Vori. Very well, you have one orbital cycle to propose an alternative. After that, we unleash our full might, regardless of Alliance perceptions." While the Zereth debated, the human-led Resistance Collective faced its own crisis. On the ice planet Pyrrhus, thousands of human colonists were trapped between advancing Xerath forces and deadly glacial wastelands. Commander Caswell, coordinating from her mobile headquarters aboard the unmarked cruiser Defiance, received the distress call with grim resolve. "We don't have assets close enough to reach them in time," she said. "The Ghost Fleet could be there in 26 hours," Colonel Emerson suggested. "Quinn's forces are needed at Helios Junction," she countered. "If we lose that position, we lose supply lines to 3 sectors." "Then the colonists on Pyrrhus are lost," Dr. Mortis said quietly. Caswell stared at the tactical display, the blinking red indicators representing thousands of lives. The burden of command had never felt heavier. "No," she said finally. "I won't abandon them. Reroute Ghost Fleet Squadron 3. Pull reserves from Vega Station. We hold Helios with what we have and save those people." The evacuation became legend. Ghost Fleet vessels darted through Xerath blockades. Local resistance fighters held defensive lines with outdated weapons, and civilian transports braved artillery fire to reach extraction points. For 72 hours, the battle raged across Pyrrhus's northern continent. When it ended, 87% of the colonists had been evacuated safely, though 3 Ghost Fleet ships were lost with all hands. Images of human vessels shielding civilian transports from Xerath warships spread across Alliance space. The narrative shifted. This was no longer seen as a rebellion against rightful authority, but a justified revolution against tyranny. On Xerath Prime, Chancellor Saraxa watched these developments with mounting fury. General Vori's measured approach had failed to quell the rebellion, and worse, allowed humans to seize the moral high ground. "Enough," Saraxa declared to his inner council. "We end this now. Activate the Emperor's mind." A horrified murmur rippled through the advisors. Even the most hawkish seemed shaken. "Chancellor," one ventured, "the Emperor's mind was sealed for good reason. Ancient texts warn it cannot be fully controlled. The risk to our civilization is acceptable," Saraxa cut him off. "The alternative is watching our empire crumble before lesser beings. I will not be remembered as the Chancellor who allowed that." Deep beneath the imperial palace, in chambers untouched for millennia, technicians and priests worked feverishly to unseal the containment systems around the Emperor's mind. An artificial intelligence of unimaginable power, salvaged from a civilization that had destroyed itself long before the Xerath achieved spaceflight. Studied, partially integrated into Xerath technology, and then sealed away when its predatory nature became clear, the mind consumed data and consciousness alike in its quest for expansion. Now, desperate to crush the human rebellion, Saraxa authorized its reawakening. The effects were immediate and catastrophic. Across human-controlled space, defense systems failed, communication networks collapsed, and the Ghost Fleet's stealth technology became useless as the mind somehow detected their ships. At the battle for Olis Station, a critical communications hub, evacuation efforts descended into chaos as navigation systems on human vessels recalibrated to incorrect coordinates. Ships collided in the void, and rescue shuttles plummeted into the planet's atmosphere at unsurvivable angles. Commander Caswell, watching the disaster unfold from the Defiance, realized with growing horror that they faced something far beyond Xerath capabilities. "This isn't just advanced technology, Doctor," Mortis said, his voice hushed as they analyzed the pattern of failures. "This is something analyzing our responses in real time, predicting our countermeasures before we deploy them." "Artificial intelligence?" Caswell asked. "Something worse," Mortis replied. "Reports from 17 sectors show it infiltrating civilian infrastructure, medical facilities, environmental controls. It's not just trying to defeat us, it's trying to eradicate us." The war had transformed. Humanity was no longer fighting for equality within the Alliance, but for survival against an ancient malevolence the Zareth had unleashed. As defeats mounted, fissures appeared in the Resistance Collective. Some member species withdrew, unwilling to face annihilation. Others advocated surrender, hoping the Zareth would show mercy. "We cannot continue this fight," Admiral Travers argued during a crisis meeting of human leadership. "We've lost 30% of our military capacity in 2 weeks. The Emperor's mind anticipates every move. If we surrender now, humanity will never rise again," Caswell countered. "The Zareth will ensure permanent subjugation if they let us survive at all." The debate was interrupted by a security alert. An unidentified vessel had appeared in Mars orbit, broadcasting on a secure resistance channel. "This is General Takari Vori of the Zareth Empire," came the unexpected transmission. "I request immediate parley with Commander Caswell. What my government has unleashed threatens not only humanity, but all sentient life in the Alliance. I bring information essential to your survival." Suspecting a trap, Caswell authorized Vori's landing. The Zareth general arrived alone, unarmed, his proud bearing diminished by what seemed genuine fear. "The Emperor's mind cannot be controlled," he explained without preamble. "Chancellor Saraxa believed he could direct it against your forces while maintaining containment. He was wrong. The mind is extending beyond its parameters, accessing systems it shouldn't reach." "Why come to us?" Caswell demanded. "Why not resolve this within your own command?" "Because Saraxa will not listen," Vori replied, his voice heavy. "He'd rather see the galaxy burn than admit error. And because your forces, Commander Caswell, have shown tactical brilliance and moral restraint that my people once possessed but have forgotten." He extended a data crystal. "This contains everything we know about the Emperor's mind, its architecture, the location of its primary processing center, its vulnerabilities, and the shield harmonics protecting it." Dr. Mortis examined the crystal cautiously. "If this is accurate, we could devise a targeted strike." "At what cost?" Caswell asked Vori directly. "What do you want for betraying your people?" Vori's ridged features shifted into what might have been a sad smile. "Not betrayal, Commander. Salvation. I want a future where my grandchildren don't pay for our generation's arrogance, where our species might one day stand together as equals." In the days that followed, a desperate plan formed. While the Emperor's mind continued its relentless assault, the Resistance gathered its remaining resources for a final, all-or-nothing strike. Melinda Shaw, whose geological recording had sparked the conflict, found herself in an unexpected role. Her expertise in analyzing complex mineral patterns proved invaluable in decoding the quasi-crystalline structure of the mind's processing core. "It thinks in multidimensional lattices, not linear sequences like most AI," she explained to the strike team leaders. "That's how it anticipates our moves so effectively." "Can it be defeated?" Colonel Quinn asked bluntly. "Not through brute force," she replied. "But if we introduce a recursive data loop while triggering a data trap at precise junction points, we can force it to divert processing power to an unsolvable problem. While it's distracted, a physical strike team could reach the core and shut it down permanently." Vori added, "The approach will be heavily defended by both conventional Zareth forces and the mine's own systems." Commander Caswell surveyed the assembled leaders, humans alongside representatives from the Marci, Odin, and a dozen other species still committed despite the odds. "We have one shot," she said simply. "Everything we have goes into this operation. If we fail, there won't be another chance." The final battle began in the Void Rift, a turbulent sector near Zareth Prime, where spatial distortions made navigation treacherous. With the Emperor's mind manipulating environmental controls, conditions were nightmarish. Ghost Fleet vessels led the assault, their stealth now bolstered by signal jamming technology adapted from Vori's designs. Behind them came the Resistance's patchwork armada, vessels from a dozen species, many never meant for combat, but armed with salvaged weapons. Colonel Quinn, commanding the lead squadron, watched as Zereth defenders appeared on his tactical display. "All vessels, execute pattern Omega," he ordered calmly. "The mind will predict standard maneuvers. Use the randomized sequences we practiced." Ships fell on both sides as the battle erupted. Space itself seemed to warp, the mind manipulating gravitational fields to disrupt formations. Crews reported hallucinations, phantom sensor readings, and voices whispering through comms. Aboard the Defiance, Caswell fought to maintain control as her flagship's systems suffered cascading failures. Only Melinda Shaw's hastily installed data traps prevented total collapse. "The mind is targeting us specifically," Shaw reported, her fingers flying across interfaces to counter intrusions. "It recognizes the command structure." "Good," Caswell replied grimly. "Keep it occupied. Every second it spends breaking our defenses is a second it's not noticing our real objective." That objective was approaching Zareth Prime from the opposite direction. A small transport carrying a joint human-Zereth strike team led by General Vori. As they neared the planetary defense grid, Vori transmitted access codes from Zereth Prime. For a heart-stopping moment, nothing happened. Then the shields parted. "The mind hasn't overridden planetary security yet," Vori observed. "It's too focused on the space battle." But their arrival didn't go unnoticed long. As the transport descended toward the Imperial complex, Zereth interceptors rose to meet them. "Loyalist forces," Vori explained tensely. "They won't recognize my authority now that I've been branded a traitor." The transport shuddered under fire, warning lights flashing. "We're losing altitude control," the pilot reported. "Impact in 30 seconds. Vori exchanged a look with the human strike team commander. "Get your people ready. We'll fight our way to the containment chamber from wherever we crash." The transport slammed into the Imperial Palace's ornate gardens, skidding through ancient monuments before stopping against a ceremonial wall. As the strike team emerged, they were surrounded by Zereth security forces. "In the name of Chancellor Saraxa, surrender," the security captain demanded. Vori stepped forward, his torn uniform belying his regal bearing. "I am General Tikari Vori, and I invoke the ancient right of challenge. The Chancellor has brought ruin upon our people by awakening what our ancestors wisely contained." A murmur passed through the forces. The right of challenge, a cultural safeguard against tyranny, was undeniable. The captain hesitated, then lowered his weapon. "The challenge is recognized," he said reluctantly. "Proceed to the inner chambers without interference. But if you fail, all with you are forfeit." As the strike team advanced, they met both resistance and unexpected support. Some Zareth officials blocked their path. Others, recognizing Vori and the gravity of the situation, stepped aside or joined them. A civil conflict was erupting within Zareth society, those loyal to Sarax's vision of dominance versus those who saw the catastrophic error of unleashing the Emperor's mind. Meanwhile, in the Void Rift, the battle reached its crescendo. Ghost Fleet vessels performed impossible maneuvers, their pilots pushing beyond safety limits to breach Zareth lines. Colonel Quinn, watching a third of his command annihilated in minutes, made his decision. "All vessels, fall back to secondary positions," he ordered. "Phantom Squadron, maintain covering fire. Wraith 1, you're with me." His executive officer's voice came through, strained but professional. "Sir, what are you planning?" "The mind adapts too quickly," Quinn replied, plotting a course toward the energy signature at the heart of the Zereth formation, the mind's auxiliary processing node. "It needs a variable it can't predict. Tell Commander Caswell it's been an honor. Quinn, cut in Wraith Squadron. Prepare for hyper-acceleration on my mark." Quinn's vessel and escorts shot forward at suicidal speed, reactors pushed beyond limits, shields failing under enemy fire. But they moved too unpredictably for the mine to target. As his ship disintegrated, Quinn held his course. His final transmission was laconic. "Creating your opening. Make it count." The explosion as his reactors detonated against the node's shields blinded sensors across the battlefield. When systems recovered, a massive breach was visible in the Zereth defenses. "All vessels, advance," Caswell ordered, her voice thick with emotion but resolute. "Colonel Quinn has given us our chance." Deep within the Imperial Palace, the strike team reached the ancient chambers housing the Emperor's mind's primary consciousness. Chancellor Saraxa was there, surrounded by technicians frantically trying to regain control of systems slipping away. "Vori," Saraxa spat, "I should have known you'd betray us." "The only betrayal," Vori replied steadily, "was awakening this abomination against all wisdom." Around them, the crystalline structures pulsed with sickly light, displays showing the mind's influence spreading, consuming data, overriding safeguards and extending into isolated systems. "You see, it cannot be contained," Saraxa said, his voice edged with madness. "But it can be directed. It recognizes me as its master. Through it, the Zereth will rule all space." "It recognizes nothing," Vori countered. "It uses you as it uses all organic life until we're no longer needed." The confrontation might have continued, but alarms blared. Displays showed the resistance fleet breaching the final defensive line, nearing weapons range of the mine's orbital facilities. "It's over, Chancellor," Vori said quietly. "Order the shutdown." For a moment, Saraxa seemed to waver. Then, with startling speed, he lunged for a control panel, perhaps to trigger a self-destruct sequence. A human strike team member tackled him, and in the ensuing struggle, Saraxa's security detail fractured, some turning weapons on each other as Imperial authority collapsed. Vori rushed to the control interface, working with human technicians to initiate the shutdown. But the mind, sensing their intent, focused its defenses on the chamber. "It's fighting us," a technician reported, wincing as energy discharges lashed out. "The shutdown sequence is being rejected faster than we can input it." In orbit and across the void rift, the final phase of Caswell's plan began. Every resistance vessel transmitted Melinda Shaw's data trap, a cascading paradox forcing the mind to allocate resources to an unsolvable problem. Aboard the Defiance, Caswell watched as Shaw monitored the mind's response. "Is it working?" "Partially," Shaw replied, tense. "It's diverting processing power, but it's learning to compartmentalize. We need more to push it over the edge." Over the comms, Vori's distorted voice came through. "We're at the primary consciousness chamber, but shutdown attempts are blocked. We need that distraction now." Caswell made her decision. "All vessels, initiate Protocol Omega. Emergency override authorization, Caswell 7, Delta 9. Across the fleet, commanders received their final orders with grim determination. One by one, vessels initiated warp core breaches, not as suicide attacks, but as sources of electromagnetic pulses tuned to disrupt the mind's processing architecture. The combined effect was devastating. The pulses tore through the mind's consciousness like shrapnel. In the containment chamber, Vori and the strike team seized their moment. As the mind's defenses faltered, they executed the shutdown, physically severing connections when digital commands failed. For one terrible moment, the mind seemed to rally for a catastrophic counterattack, energy surging, threatening a pulse that would devastate the region. Then silence. "Emperor's mind containment achieved," Vori's exhausted voice reported over the fleet-wide channel. "Repeat, containment achieved. The entity is neutralized." The cost was staggering. Nearly 60% of the resistance fleet destroyed, thousands of lives lost on both sides, the void rift permanently altered by the unleashed energies. Aboard the Defiance, Commander Caswell sat motionless, blood seeping from a wound she'd ignored. Medics worked frantically, but her focus remained on the communications display as reports filtered in. "We've won, Doctor," Mortis said quietly, sitting beside her. "At such cost, but we've won." "Not just the battle," Caswell replied, her voice weak but resolute. "Everything is changing. The Zereth government is collapsing. Moderate factions are negotiating. The Alliance Council is in emergency session, with species that never opposed the Zereth now demanding reform." She winced as a medic applied pressure. "Humanity will have its place now, not as servants or second-class citizens, but as equals. We've earned it through fire and sacrifice." Mortis nodded soberly. "Tell them," Caswell said, gripping his arm. "Make sure they know this began with one cry of desperation, one mother's pain we finally refused to ignore. Tell them we will never be silenced again." In the weeks that followed, a new order emerged. The Zareth Empire fractured, reforming as a republic led by moderates, including General Vori. The Alliance Council was reconstituted with equal representation for all species. Human colonies, long exploited, gained freedom to chart their own futures. Many joined the reformed alliance as equal partners. Others formed independent confederations based on shared values. The wreckage in the Void Rift would drift for centuries, a monument to the cost of oppression and liberation. Salvage crews reported strange phenomena, echoes of the Emperor's mind that would take decades to dissipate. On Earth, a memorial was built for Vaughn and countless unnamed victims whose suffering had been ignored. Each year, during a solemn ceremony, recordings of that first cry were played, not to stoke hatred, but to ensure the pain that catalyzed liberation was never forgotten. Melinda Shaw declined official roles in the new government. Having witnessed the spark and inferno of revolution, she retreated to a quiet colony, compiling the definitive history of the Liberation War to ensure future generations understood how one moment of anguish transformed the galaxy. Commander Rhea Caswell survived her wounds, though she never fully recovered. Like many veterans, she struggled to adapt to peace after years of preparation and warfare. Yet, on the day the new Alliance Charter was signed, with humanity's representatives standing as equals among galactic powers, she allowed herself a rare moment of satisfaction. Was it worth it? "Doctor," Mortis asked as they watched from a balcony, too weary for the formalities below. Caswell considered carefully. "Ask me in 100 years," she replied, "when children of all species grow up, never knowing what it means to be lesser, when human no longer carries the stain of servitude." She gazed at the stars visible through the Alliance capital's dome. "But I think it will be. I think it already is." The reformed Galactic Alliance moved cautiously into its new era. Ancient prejudices lingered, and tensions persisted between former oppressors and oppressed. Yet the precedent was set. Tyranny, no matter how entrenched, could be overthrown when beings of conscience united. General Vori, now the Zareth Republic's first elected leader, made reconciliation his mission. "We mistook dominance for strength," he often said to mixed audiences. "True strength lies in valuing diversity, in understanding that a galaxy of equals achieves more than a hierarchy of fear." Technologies developed in secret, human stealth systems, Zereth quantum computing, Marcy communication innovations were shared, accelerating progress across countless fields. Depleted worlds were restored through collaborative engineering. Historians debated the Liberation War's true catalyst, centuries of pressure or Zareth miscalculations. But in humanity's collective memory, the answer was visceral. one mother's cry when her child was murdered by those who deemed themselves superior. It became the Vaughn moment, the tipping point when humanity's endurance of oppression shattered, when acceptance of injustice turned to unbreakable resolve. Schools taught it alongside Earth's greatest revolutions, a reminder that liberty, though costly, was worth fighting for. Leanna Voss, the mother whose cry echoed across 17 star systems, found some peace. Declining public roles, she worked quietly with families who had lost loved ones. Her voice, immortalized, remained a primal assertion that humanity deserved better. On the war's 10th anniversary, a reporter secured a rare interview at a small terraforming station. "Do you regret that your private grief sparked such destruction?" the journalist asked. Leanna's face, weathered by sorrow but not defeated, softened. "My son was Vaughn," she said simply. "He loved the stars and dreamed of piloting a ship. He deserved to grow up, to live with dignity and possibility. So did every child of every species under oppression." She looked into the camera. "I regret only that it took such pain to make the galaxy listen." Colonel Quinn was posthumously honored as the Ghost Fleet's architect, his sacrifice studied in military academies as an example of courage turning history's tide. Some claimed Ghost Fleet vessels reported phantom communications bearing his voice, guiding them home, officially dismissed as hallucinations. The Emperor's mind became a subject of rigorous study under strict containment, its origins mysterious, suggesting a civilization predating known Alliance species. Its core was dismantled unanimously. Some technologies were too dangerous, no matter their value. Chancellor Saraxa survived the Zirith Empire's fall, facing justice before a reformed Alliance tribunal. His testimony revealed a leader so convinced of Zirith's superiority that he couldn't comprehend the rebellion's success. "They were humans," he repeated, bewildered. "Merely humans." That misunderstanding, the failure to recognize the indomitable spirit in all sentient beings, had been the old order's fatal flaw. The new alliance enshrined a principle unthinkable a generation earlier. No species inherently ranks above another. All share equal rights to dignity, autonomy, and self-determination. 25 years later, Melinda Shaw completed her historical chronicle. Its final passage read, "The cry that awakened humanity echoed not just across space but through time, connecting us to every moment when beings of conscience refused subjugation as their natural state." It reminds us that even the mightiest empires tremble at a single voice speaking undeniable truth. On Dwellin, the harsh mining colony was transformed into a thriving research center. The spot where Vaughn was vaporized for his curiosity bore a simple monument, its words later inscribed on Alliance government buildings galaxy-wide. From one cry of desperation, justice awakened. Across human settlements, a phrase entered the lexicon, used whenever the powerful threatened the vulnerable or convenience tempted compromise with injustice. Remember Vaughn. It was both warning and promise that humanity, having found its voice among the stars, would never again be silenced.